You know the drill. You're in lower league management, you're filling up your squad with free agents. But how do you make sure you don't miss any gems? Because the longer it takes you to look at those free agents, the more of them are going to get snapped up. How do you make sure you get to look at as many of them as possible and give yourself the widest range to choose from? Stay tuned, I'll tell you how. So, you've got your pool of players, go into your scouting players in range, that'll bring up everyone you know about. What we want to then do is limit it to those who are actually going to sign for us, so even if they're doubtful, get them on the list. And then we're looking for out of contract players, so we hit unattached on the contract status. Okay, we've got 613 options. Now, you're never going to scout your way through all that, and with the traditional method, you won't work your way through that many of them on trial. Yes, you can invite them, and anyone who doesn't look like they're going to be good enough, you can dispose of straight away. This way, you don't really even need to do that. Now, I would suggest setting up a shortlist. So, simply click on that, new shortlist. As you can see, I've created one simply just called Trial List. And I have been working my way through the huge list that we had, which is why there's only 121 players left on this. To get them on there, obviously, once you find them in here, highlight them, highlight as many of them as it'll let you do, and then just add them to the shortlist. So you pick the shortlist, add them to it. I'm not going to actually do that here because, like I say, I have been going through these. Once you've got them added to the shortlist, go to the general info view because it's just nice and convenient, because that one will tell you whether any of them have got a club or not, because as you go through this, some of them will get picked up by people, and then you can just find the ones with a club, highlight them, remove them before you go offering any trials out. Now, you can offer about 30, so we'll get that there. That is exactly 30. There's about 24 on that page, so just go a few below that. Offer the trial, 2 weeks, job done. Now, you'll need to wait until they arrive before you can offer the next batch, because that's where the trick to this lies. Now, you can see here, this is your classic message that you'll get saying you'd end up with more than 30 players on trial at the club. So we can't fit all those ones that I offered a trial to in. We'll go through the ones that we can, so you just accept those. Anyone who gets signed by someone, you can just take them off the list at this stage, saves you having to look for them later. If you don't want to, then, like I say, just use that view to identify which ones are at a club and just take them straight off the list, because they've only just signed for a team. They're not going to sign for you at this point. So I'll leave a few of those there so you can see what I mean with that in a bit. But there, that's accepted those who are going to come to us. And now, as you can see, we've got this list of emails telling us about everyone who has arrived. Go into the first team squad, highlight them all the ones that are in green. I have this sorted by contract expiry date. I've got one of my custom views is financial. It's got the contract expiry date on there. So if you set that up somewhere, just so you can arrange them like that, it just makes them easier to pick out. And highlight them all and just move them to the under 21 squad. Then we go back to our trialist shortlist. As you can see, all this lot now have Club Weymouth, which is us, because they're here on trial. And then you've got Ethan Robb down there, who's joined Hendon. So we can remove him from the shortlist. We'll just double check. Oh, yeah, no, there are a few hidden up the top out of sight. Remove them and rinse and repeat. Do the next ones. You can normally get through a couple of batches a day, maybe in just over a day. So you can really rattle through these quite quickly. Just to give you an idea of how many you can get through in a day, if I click on the little calendar thing up here, this indicates obviously how many of these trials finish a day, and you can see we've got between 50 and 80 most of these days finishing. That's how many of these you can get through and how quickly you can get through them. Once you're done, you will end up with an under 21 squad that looks like this. And as you can see, all these ones in green here, all on trial. If I right click, 467 trialists, all of whom we are finding out about as we go along, taking no more than about 2 weeks. And if I just pick out Enoch Asante, for example, there we go. We know all about him now. Looks pretty good. Might well consider signing him. So you can filter this down. One caveat I will give is that obviously with this number of people on trial, your training is going to take an absolute hammering. No one is going to train well because your coaches are trying to spread themselves across like 500 players pretty much here. So it's going to take a hit, but then I have got through, I mean, I'll go back to the shortlist. There's now 94 players on that. When I started this, there were well over 600 on there. Certainly within 2 weeks, I could have offered every one of those 600 players a trial, got them here, had a look at them, disposed of those that we're not bothered with, and really narrowed down my choices. And of course, the vast majority of them are still free agents at this point. No one has picked them up. There aren't that many that have disappeared. You can see how many of these would be good signings. I mean, look at that. There are loads of minimum 4-star players. Yeah, 23 4-star and above players we've found. And then if you include the 3.5 stars who are going to be pretty good as well, there's probably another 20 of them. So this will give you by far the biggest choice of free agents, and you'll know about them all within probably 2 or 3 weeks of the start of your save, or the start of, you know, sort of after they get released, because obviously you can do this every season. All the time you are relying on free signings, this is the way to go. One other thing I will briefly mention, obviously you do need another squad other than your main first team squad to be able to do this. We here have an under 21s and under 18s. I could put them in either. I chose the under 21s, but you'll need some sort of youth squad or B team in order to be able to do this, because it only seems to recognise that you've got 30 in your first team squad. Doesn't seem to be overly bothered if you put them somewhere else. So that's basically it. I mean, as long as you get these trialists and put them somewhere other than your first team squad, you can have as many as you like. You'll get all this information on them. You can make informed decisions and build yourself a squad that will absolutely probably destroy that division. I don't think I've ever seen anyone produce a video about this specific thing. I know I've seen the likes of Zealand say about getting people in on trial, but he doesn't seem to have ever used and abused the system in this particular way. Whether they'll nerf this at some point and do a bit of presumably relatively simple maths to say if you've got 30 trialists across the club in all your squads, then you can't have any more. But until they do, feel free to use this and become the most knowledgeable lower league manager in the game.